So Lexie Hull, obviously, a player for the Indiana Fever. And I would say the Rose, but she doesn't leave the bench anymore. She has been pushed to the end of the bench from a starting spot on the best team in Unrivaled to end of the bench on the worst team in Unrivaled. Like, it does, for me, I'm looking at it and I'm like, what is Nola Henry doing? Like, I understand.
Watch that frustration. That's not just casual commentary. That's someone watching a career get sabotaged in real time. Lexie Hull went from starting on the best team in the WNBA to riding the bench on the worst, and the decisions being made in Chicago right now, they're not just hurting the sky. They might be the best thing that ever happened to the Indiana Fever.
Like, what's it? The Wings would have been so much better if Nola was the coach over Chris Coughlin is. Based on what? Based on what? Nola Henry did a bad job at Unrivaled last year, and then, in fairness, got very lucky that Kalia Copper went and got herself injured. Because I don't mean to wish injury on anybody, but this team functions so much better without Kalia Copper.
Marina Mabrey just dropped 47 points on the Chicago Sky. Not 30, not 40, 47. A near 50 piece. And while she's cooking, Lexie Hull, the player who was locking down elite guards just weeks ago in Unrivaled, is collecting splinters at the end of the bench. The same player who had Paige Bueckers, Alyssa Thomas, and Jackie Young in absolute hell is now watching Kate Martin get more minutes. Let that sink in.
Should we put our best defender? And by the way, Marina Mabrey was cooking Lexie Hull. But at least when Lexie Hull was on, it was the unbelievable, crazy shit that she was putting up and going in. And in fairness, Lexie Hull did jump on some of those fakes that Marina Mabrey was throwing, but I don't really care. Like, she had a 20-point second half. They got killed while Lexie Hull was getting bench splinters. I understand Lexie was...
Here's what makes this so insane. Marina Mabrey wasn't just scoring efficiently. She had a 20-point second half. 20 points in one half. While Lexie Hull sat there watching. And yes, Mabrey was hitting some ridiculous shots over Hull in unrivaled, contested fadeaways. Pump fakes that got her airborne. But at least when Hull was on the floor, you were making Mabrey work for it. You were forcing her into tough shots. The moment Hull sits, it becomes a layup line.
Lexie Hull. It does not work with Kalia Copper, Chelsea Gray, and a big. That line does not work. And to be fair, like, at times they ran double bigs last year with Azare and Angel Reese. But lads, we are now sitting here watching game after game after game where Lexie Hull is sitting on the end of the bench. Like, Kate Martin's even playing more minutes for the Breeze at the minute than Lexie's playing for her team. And
now here's the pattern that Tyler Marsh figured out last season. And somehow, Noah Henry has completely forgotten. The Chicago Sky's most effective lineup wasn't complicated. It was Chelsea Gray, Angel Reese, and a hustle wing player. Sometimes that was Chennedy Carter. A lot of times, it was Michaela Onyen were providing energy. The formula worked because you had Gray running the offense, Reese controlling the glass, and someone who could defend multiple positions and make winning plays. This year, that someone should be Lexie Hull. Instead, she's glued to the bench because Kalia Copper is back.
Rachel Bannum. Kate Martin might be the worst player. Might have been the worst player so far. At the same time, the likes of Dana Evans and stuff are injured. And actually, no. There's some players that haven't been great, to be fair. But, yeah, we're looking at it now, and it's just a pity. It is just a pity that she's not playing at all. Good thing for the Fever, though.
And look, nobody's saying you bench Kalia Copper. She's a 3-time All-Star. She's got the pedigree. But here's the problem. The Chelsea Gray, Kalia Copper, and a big lineup doesn't work. It didn't work in the games they've played together. The spacing is wrong, the defensive assignments get muddled, and you're taking your best hustle player completely out of the equation. Tyler Marsh used to run double big lineups with Azura Stevens and Angel Reese when he needed to. He understood lineup flexibility. What's happening now in Chicago isn't flexibility, it's stubbornness.
Playing Unrivaled, it was a weird one. It was a really, really weird one. That being said, when it comes down to it, Lexie Hull is going to be a bit less sought after maybe in free agency, which helps us, which absolutely helps the Fever because, again, what Lexie Hull does cannot be replicated. It cannot be replicated. Absolutely, it cannot be replicated.
Remember all those people saying the Dallas Wings would have been so much better if Noah Henry had stayed as head coach instead of Chris McLannis taking over? Based on what exactly? Because right now, we're watching Henry make the same rotation mistakes that got coaches fired in previous years. She's prioritizing names over production. She's ignoring what the film shows. And most importantly, she's letting a player who was dominant 3 weeks ago completely waste away on the bench while her team gets torched. The Wings dodged a bullet. Indiana is about to benefit from it.
That being said, though, I do feel like Lexie in general has the ability and to command something decent in free agency. It's not like, let's just say hypothetically, it's going to be way over $1 million for the max salary. Half a max, give her 500-600K. If it's 1.4 million, give her 700-800, give it 800K maybe. Like, basically, don't give her a contract that'll stop us from signing a Leah Boston or Caitlin.
Here's where this gets interesting for the Fever. Lexie Hull is a restricted free agent after this season. If there is a season, and that's still a legitimate if right now with all the CBA negotiations, Hull is going to hit the market. And her value is dropping by the game. Not because she's playing poorly, but because she's not playing at all. Teams around the league are going to look at Unrivaled tape and say, okay, she had some good moments, but she's barely seeing the floor in Chicago. They're going to undervalue her, which means Indiana can bring her back without breaking the bank.
Maybe, like, unless it's an expansion team. At the end of the day, we saw with the Valks, like, when it comes to the expansion teams, it's better to win than it is to have the... I'm not going to say have the star. Like, if it's a Caitlin Clark star, but, like, for example, have, like, a star role player like a Kate Martin. Like, I don't think Kate Martin affects whether or not people are going to go to the Valkyries games.
And here's what people need to understand about Lexie Hull's game. It cannot be replicated. You cannot just go find another player who does what she does. Defensive playmakers who can guard multiple positions, defensive playmakers who can guard multiple positions, dive for loose balls, take charges, and make the right read every single time. Those players are rare in professional basketball, period. You can find scorers, you can find shooters, you can even find athletes. But you cannot easily find someone who plays winning basketball the way Hull does at the professional level. The WNBA has maybe 5 or 6 players who fill that role at an elite level. Hull is one of them.
League pot anyway, which is kind of a shit one, but look, it is what it is. And yeah, it is. It's one of those things. It's a funny thing again with American sports. Like, everything is set up for the league to succeed and not for teams to succeed. Whereas in other, like in European leagues, it's like, yeah, a team might go bust if it's mismanaged, but like the league will never go bust. And
now let's talk about Kate Martin for a second, because this comparison matters. Kate Martin has been terrible in Unrivaled. Outside of Rachel Banham, who has been the worst player in the league by 100 miles, Martin might have the worst plus-minus of anyone who's gotten consistent minutes. She's not scoring, she's not defending, she's not creating. Lysadana suffered an injury, so some players have had to step up, but Martin isn't one of them. And yet she's getting more run than Lexie Hull. That should tell you everything you need to know about how these rotations are being managed.
Lexie is someone that was playing too well to be getting bench splinters, to be honest. I feel like she was too important to her team to be getting bench splinters, and we saw what she did in that game, what she did to Paige Becker. She had Paige Beckers in hell. She had Alyssa Thomas and Jackie Young in hell. And as soon as Copper comes back, she's gone to the end of the bench. She is on the end of the bench, which is, again, she's getting her workout in. Assuming there is a season, that's good for the Fever.
Here's the broader issue with how WNBA teams are evaluating talent right now. They're putting way too much stock in unrivaled performance. Way too much. We saw this last year when teams were making personnel decisions on how players looked in 3-on-3 leagues or overseas. Unrivaled is great for keeping players sharp in the offseason. It's great for exposure. It's great for building the women's basketball ecosystem. But it's not the WNBA season. The competition level is different. The coaching is different. The schemes are different. And yet, teams are treating Unrivaled like it's summer league for veterans. It's causing them to overreact and underreact in all the wrong ways.
I would say, like, oh yeah, you want players to pay as much as possible. As a fan of a team, I want the team to put as good a team as possible out on the floor. She'll make her millions in brand deals. I hope she becomes a billionaire. But I also hope that her salary does not fuck us over salary-wise as a fan of a team. And I don't understand that the weird thing in the WNBA where it's like fans are selling. Like, this is again, it's just not it's not a sports thing. Like,
so here's what Indiana needs to do the moment this season ends. Assuming there is a season, they need to get Lexie Hull signed immediately. Not next week. Not after exploring other options. Immediately. Because if she hits restricted free agency and another team makes an offer, the Fever have to match it. And depending on what expansion teams do, or what a team like Dallas or Los Angeles might offer, that number could get uncomfortable. The ideal contract? Somewhere between $600,000 and $800,000 annually. That's not max money. The max is around $1.4 million. But it's enough to show respect and keep her happy. More importantly, it's a number that doesn't prevent Indiana from signing Leah Boston or Caitlin Clark to extensions when their time comes. Here's what makes Hull's situation so critical for Indiana's future. The Fever finally have their cornerstone pieces in place. Caitlin Clark is generational. Aaliyah Boston is a perennial all-star. They've got young talent developing around them, but championship teams aren't built on stars alone. They're built on players who do the dirty work. Players who take the charges, fight for loose balls, set the screens nobody notices, and make the defensive rotations that don't show up in the box score. Lexie Hull is that player. And right now, Chicago is gift-wrapping her back to Indiana at a discount. Think about what Hull did for the Fever last season before she got traded. She was their best perimeter defender. She was the one who could switch onto guards or forwards without the defense breaking down. She was the energy player who sparked runs when the offense went stagnant. Tyler Marsh understood her value, which is why she was starting. The front office clearly didn't, which is why they moved her. Now they have a chance to fix that mistake, and it's going to cost them less than it should because Noah Henry is mismanaging rotations in Chicago. Let's talk about the restricted free agency process, because this matters. If Hill doesn't sign with Chicago immediately after the season, she can field offer sheets from other teams. Those teams submit their offers, and Chicago has the right to match. If Chicago matches, Hull stays. If they don't, she walks. But here's the thing. Chicago is going to be in a weird spot financially. They've got Copper's contract. They've got to figure out what they're doing with Angel Reese long-term. They've got Chelsea Gray's veteran deal. Do they really want to match a significant offer for a player their coach won't even play? Indiana, meanwhile, can structure an offer that makes sense for their timeline. They can front-load it or back-load it, depending on when Clark and Boston's extensions kick in. They can include incentives based on playing time or playoff performance. They have flexibility that Chicago doesn't, and here's the kicker. Because Hull is barely playing in Unrivaled, and because she's not getting minutes in Chicago, her market value is artificially suppressed. Teams that might have offered her $900,000 or $1 million are going to look at her current situation and think twice. They're going to say, well, if she was that good, why isn't she playing? It's the same flawed logic that causes teams to overdraft players who had big March Madness tournaments or sign free agents who had one good contract year, recency bias. And it's about to work in Indiana's favor. Now let's address the elephant in the room. What if there isn't a WNBA season? The CBA negotiations are ongoing, and there's real tension around revenue sharing, salary caps, and expansion logistics. If the players in the league can't reach an agreement, we could be looking at a work stoppage. And if that happens, Lexie Hull's value gets even more complicated. But here's what Indiana should be doing regardless. They should be in her ear right now. They should be building that relationship, making it clear she's valued, showing her the role she'd have in their system. Because if and when a new CBA gets signed, there's going to be a mad scramble for talent. Teams are going to be making moves quickly. Indiana needs to be first in line. The other factor working in the Fever's favor: jersey sales and revenue sharing. Under the new CBA structure that's been discussed, jersey sales get pooled and distributed across the league. So even though the Fever, Liberty, and Aces are selling the most merchandise, that money gets spread around, which means individual teams don't benefit as much from having a popular player on their roster. That changes the calculus for someone like Kate Martin. Yes, she sells jerseys, Yes, she has a fan base from her Iowa days. But if the Golden State Valkyries don't get to keep all that jersey revenue, does it make sense to pay her starter money? Probably not. And that same logic applies to other role players around the league. Lexie Hull doesn't have the same name recognition as Mart. She doesn't have the built-in fan base. But she has the game. And in a league where revenue is shared, teams are going to start prioritizing production over popularity. That benefits players like Hull. Here's what's going to happen if Indiana plays this right. They'll sign Hull to a reasonable deal, let's say 3 years, $2.1 million total, with a team option on the third year. That's $700,000 per season, which is fair value for a high-level role player. It keeps her happy, it keeps the cap manageable, and it gives Indiana flexibility down the road. Then they'll plug her back into the starting lineup next to Clark in Boston. She'll go back to doing what she does best, defending the opponent's best perimeter player, crashing the glass, making the extra pass, and setting the tone with her effort. The Fever will be better immediately. And 2 years from now, when people are talking about Indiana's championship core, Lexie Hull will be one of the names mentioned. Meanwhile, Chicago will be wondering how they let her walk for nothing. They'll be stuck with a roster that doesn't fit, a coach who can't figure out rotations, and a fan base that's frustrated watching other teams succeed with players they gave away. And Noah Henry will still be trying to make the Chelsea Gray and Kalia Copper pairing work, even though the film clearly shows it doesn't. So yeah, from Indiana's perspective, watching Lexie Hull collect splinters in Chicago isn't a tragedy. It's an opportunity. Every game she doesn't play is another game her market value drops. Every time Kate Martin gets minutes over her is another data point Indiana can use in contract negotiation. Every mistake Noah Henry makes is another reason Hull might want to come back to a team that actually appreciates what she brings. The Fever got lucky once when they drafted Caitlin Clark. They got lucky again when Aaliyah Boston fell to them. Now they're getting lucky a third time because Chicago can't figure out how to use the player Indiana never should have traded in the first place. Don't waste it. Sign Lexie Hull II this season and pay her what she's worth, not what the market says, but what she actually brings to a championship contender. And then watch as one of the league's most undervalued players helps turn Indiana into a dynasty. Because here's the reality. You can't win a championship with just stars. You need the Lexie Hulls of the world. The players who do everything that doesn't show up on SportsCenter. And right now, one of the best role players in the WNBA is sitting on Chicago's bench, watching her value tank, waiting for a team smart enough to bring her home. Indiana has that chance. The question is whether they're smart enough to take it.